Welcome, Wandering Warriors, to the first campaign Diaries. This is the newest little show to our Delta Cryptic Productions channel. We're going to be talking about the creation of almost an entirely new world as we're preparing to shift one of our first campaigns into a whole new direction. And the man responsible for all of this is right here. He should be the one to tell you most of it, but just so everyone knows, I'm Ollie. You can call me like as the Stratus on the interwebs if you desire. And moving on to you, good sir.
Hey guys, I'm David. Otherwise, I go by Zenokami in various places on the internet. He, him pronouns. And yeah, I am the DM of Heroes of Hysteria, which you can catch here on the Delta Crypto channel. I'm also a player in our Terramachia game. You can catch me as Shin over there as well. As far as anywhere else on the internet, you're probably not going to see me in too many places other than, maybe teabagging somebody in Overwatch. And then we've also got a couple of other folks with us today. We've got Maxwell Smith and Nigel. Max, you want to say who you are, why you're here, all that shit?
I'm here to cause chaos. You already, I guess, know who I am. Maxwell Smith, here to have fun, play in numerous different games, and played in multiple games with David as player and as DM. We always like to have fun, and I always like screwing with the stories. So I'm sure you're going to see plenty of that in this next season.
Sure. Nigel?
Nigel, I'm just typically going to be a player in a lot of David's campaigns. I'm not as chaotic until he gets sick of me, of course. Not as chaotic as Max in D&D campaigns. So I'm starting to think maybe we should treat Max as like, for lack of a better description, let's say the players are the good guys, you have the bad guys. Max is like that in between,
the
like
anti-hero,
self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
There's the vocabulary words.
I'm a sister god. I'm like Loki.
I'm trying to think of. He's like Shadow the Hedgehog in Sonic.
Pretty much, yeah.
Chaos control. It's actually
edgy,
fitting.
Though.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe not that edgy. I don't know, man. Arnold has some edge to him.
Arnold was a little edgy, but he was fun.
But on the subject of Arnold and the old campaign, let's talk about that. So we have put out, so far at least, one episode publicly of our campaign, Heroes of Hysteria. Heroes of Hysteria features, all the lovely faces that you see here with me today, as well as several others. And we are, like I said, one episode into actual release, several episodes kind of stockpiled and editing. They're kind of still on the cutting room floor. But as we've been kind of listening to them, kind of going through them, kind of reviewing them, I realized that I wasn't very happy with what we had. It's not bad. It's good. It's still, we've done a lot of good work. We've got a lot of great role play. We were telling kind of, at least I think, an interesting story. But the campaign has some issues, and a lot of those issues I think are going to kind of hurt it in terms of something, one, for people to kind of consume, and two, for players to really kind of feel connected to the story itself. It's kind of uneven. And this is in large part due to how this campaign kind of started. So you guys know, Ollie, maybe I knew not so much, but this campaign was originally a supplement. It wasn't meant to actually be a campaign. This whole storyline was originally going to be just like a 5 to 7 session little story arc, kind of supplementing our actual campaign, the Davidian Plague. So this wasn't ever really meant to become like a full campaign, but as more players were kind of interested, as we stopped playing our original campaign more and more, just kind of due to life and all those kind of things, we had some difficulty getting players at the table, that kind of stuff. We ended up kind of playing this one more, so it just kind of expanded, And as more characters were coming in an effort to kind of get them, brought into the story, it became this really kind of weird patchwork mutant quilt of a campaign. And when I think of it, at least when I've listened to it and watched it from a viewer's perspective, even just the first episode, you come in and just like right out of the gate, there's some immediate disconnects,
I want to add this too. It's not only that we was playing a supplement campaign and we try to turn it into a main one. Mm-hmm. We were playing with 3 or 4 people, I forgot, and everyone except me switched characters.
Yes.
Came up with new characters as well.
Yes. And
so like in terms of narrative, my character's been there this whole time. So it's like someone who has a year ahead on a campaign and then everyone else is jumping in, starting out.
And that's been kind of an issue because some of our players have expressed to me, privately and kind of within a group, that sometimes it feels like I'm writing for Callian. But
which is my character.
That's not just character. Yeah, but the tricky thing is that it's just that Callian has kind of been there a long time. Like the world knows Callian on a different level than they know the others, right? I actually was thinking about this in terms of like story arcs, right? Callian's story arc kind of picked up in like session 3 or 4 of the original Covenant of the Fawn Isle, when you started having that curse afflicted on you, and then coming back to the inn and finding the coffin, right? Mm-hmm. That's when Callian's story really starts to pick up, right? You're at that point, you are like, I don't know why I'm here. My friend is missing. All this crazy shit is happening to me, right? I
made an agreement with these hags I was not a part of, but just self-preservation.
Yeah.
That or death.
Now we're kind of like getting into the upswing of Callian's arc. Here's the thing, right? Jonquil is in that exact spot. Look at the way Jonquil's story is playing out right now in where we are, not viewers, unfortunately, you don't know, but where we are kind of as a group, right? So you can see there's like a very obvious lag in terms of story progress, and it's really uneven, and it makes for a difficult experience for as a viewer. You don't feel quite as connected because all your characters are in different places. All your characters have different connections. And if you are trying to view this world and this story through the lens of the characters, right, you have a very different experience across the board. I think some viewers might be into it. Some viewers, we are still recording our current Covenant of Fawn Isle Feywild story. And I do expect that we will, put in the effort and post it and all that stuff one day. But just right now, it's not something that I think should be kind of going out for people to try to even begin to kind of wrap their head in. It's like picking up, a book and starting at, just chapter 7. You have no idea, why do I need to care about this stuff? Here's a great example. You guys, in the very first scene that we meet our characters in Heroes of Hysteria, you guys walk out of the portal and immediately we say like, oh, we're all here except for Marduk. We're missing somebody. Never comes up again. We don't care about it. The audience have no idea why they should care about it, right? Because at the table, we're very meta. We know, oh, well, Marduk's not here because the player that plays Marduk isn't here, right? Granted, we don't have a strong connection to Marduk at this point, but it definitely gets like no attention, And, some of that's just the table stuff. Again, we were missing a player. There was a scheduling misunderstanding, but we decided to kind of roll with it anyway and just kind of, play out how it would go. So things have a pretty big disconnect, right?
Which, I mean, that obviously is an issue whenever you start from where you guys started. You guys were in the middle of a campaign. You're like, let's turn this into something else.
Yeah.
Which, obviously, this is the one of the main benefits of the retooling as we're doing is to start fresh with the not just the players but with the audience too.
Yeah.
At this point, as far as the audience is concerned, you could really treat what we're going to be releasing currently for at least a little while as like a pilot episodes.
Yeah.
Just like to get you familiar with some of the players and the way that we play ourselves, and it's it's more loose.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll definitely be doing a lot of those, especially as even part of the campaign diaries, because we've got some shit we got to work through and figure out how it all comes together. So I think, I don't know if there's any other things that anybody wants to talk about in terms of the old campaign. Like I said, we're still recording it. We'll be posting it. I think the one thing I also have, and this is kind of a personal thing, and I know it's my story and everything, and I kind of wrote it this way, but it's not super original, and I don't like it. It's like, it's a Feywild hag story. Like, ooh, hags in the Feywild.
I've never experienced it before, so I don't know. Like, I feel like the people you're talking about is like the Buttons or the Austins of the world, who's
I guess
like when Button plays and you say 2 sentences, they have the monster lore in their head.
yeah, they kind of know what's coming there. Yeah.
Their only challenge is how do I bring this up naturally? How would my character know this? Because I already know.
Yeah.
But that's rare. Like I never have those moments.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Because, for me, when I think we're telling a hag story, in the Fae, like the Fae is fun, I think, is a setting, right? And I think hags are interesting as villains, but it's not, I don't know. It's been done before.
It's also the start.
It is the start. Yeah, I know. But the thing is, well, here's the thing. For the viewers, it's the start. For us, it's not. Right? So again, here is, I think, another little bit of disconnect too. The other thing too is, just being in the Fae, starting a series like for an audience in a place like the Fae, where us as a group, we didn't really have a zero session kind of talking about the Fae. I mean, I posted like a World Anvil article, but there's a lot of things conceptually about the Fae that are difficult for the players to just kind of feel okay with. Yeah, conceptualize and just kind of realize like, okay, some of the stuff that we know as players are different and just hard to reconcile in the Fae. Like, we got to get over certain things, or we have to be, accepting of certain, weird outcomes. Time is a big one. I think, it's the one that I keep seeing coming up a lot, is everybody asking like, okay, did this happen? Like, it's the Fae. You said it happened. Kind of happened. It's a world of intention. If you want something to happen, it happens. And I mentioned it in like episode 1 that you guys absolutely feel free to take advantage of this stuff. The world is built around intention, but it's hard for us to keep that stuff in mind. And in the end,
yeah, but the question is more.
And in the end, the sassy dogs.
Did you kill the bed? But yeah,
I feel like the question becomes more. It's trying to reconcile player versus character, because as players we know all these things, but like as a character, Kelly technically shouldn't know this is the thing. I just sort of moved along with it.
Well, luckily you have 2 Fae creatures with you that told you
that he can't communicate with effectively.
It would have to be Bob who.
So that was the other thing too, is that I sprung a challenge on the party that it doesn't
tell
seem
everyone
to
this brilliant idea.
Okay,
Please.
Hang on. It's not that bad. Really, I mean,
it's brilliant.
I think you guys make it sound worse than it actually is. Yes, I made it so that you guys have 2 Fae creatures with you in your party. Or rather, you guys made it so you have 2 Fae creatures with you in your party. I didn't tell you guys I didn't tell them what to play.
You're right, we could have killed him.
But yeah, you could have killed him and ended this whole issue long ago.
What's a fate?
Bang bang. But so it made sense to me that they come from a very isolated group of Fae too, right? That have no real interaction with the material plane. Just there's some lore there that we aren't going to get into. But as an isolated community, they come out to the material plane. Why would they speak common? You know, it grounds, it gives the world a little bit of realism, right? You know, for a fantasy world, so it helps us kind of ground into it. But then the other thing too is it was meant to really add a challenge to the players, and I think it's really fun the way the party has managed to overcome it. Like we said, it's fun to joke about the fact that this is outwardly the most silent party in the history of D&D, because you guys are all just talking in your psychic whispers lobby.
Yeah, we have a rogue, and we just communicate.
No
it's
one
just
speaks ever.
we just open up a subreddit and we just talk to each other.
And
Everyone's
there's
just tweeting in person.
yeah, exactly. You guys are constantly. It offers up the opportunity for there to be. I was hoping it would also offer us up the opportunity to be a little bit loose and find some ways to kind of inject a little bit of humor. Like let's say in combat here, someone says like, "Oh, shoot the one on the left," right? And then you shoot the wrong one or something. You'd say like, "Oh, translation error" or something. I don't know. It was meant to kind of open up the ground for some more like.
My opinion on that is, I think that works for a what would you call them? Like the guest character that comes in.
Sure.
But when you're in D&D and everything is just mental, and you have to talk to the other players, otherwise, I'm the type of person where you get placed in a room. I'm not going to ask 10, 20 questions saying, what do I see in this corner and that corner? I want to talk to my other players.
That.
Yeah.
And so it's just sometimes when, like, I want to say something to Fila. Well, it works now, but previously, if I wanted to say something to Fila, who's, what's the race called? Mountain Satyr?
Yeah,
Satyr?
Mountain Satyr.
And I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I also have something personal in this, in that I live in a country, an island, that speaks 4 languages, and one of them is English, but it's not the main one.
Yeah.
So, I'm dealing with this where I'm always surrounded by other languages, and I have no idea what they're talking about. I can't.
That's for me. That makes
that's
me
cool
feel
to
happy.
you.
That's cool to me. That's really cool to me, because it's like, oh,
I think this is
I don't
grass is
know.
green
I'm
on the
big
other
fan
side
of-
situation.
Yeah, I don't know. But
I think
I don't know.
personally, the only thing that I have with that sort of thing is that while it has good chances for like fun moments and hilarious miscommunications, which, let's be honest, that's a staple of comedy, is
Right.
the idea of miscommunication. But for a tabletop or anything where it's character driven, the fact that the characters have to go through these extra steps to engage one another makes it like, even if it's just a minor hindrance, it's still a bit of a hindrance. And like Nigel was saying, I think for guest characters, fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Because then it's just like, all right, we're gonna deal with this dude until we can handle it.
Yeah, until we can.
We
Yeah,
can get rid of him. Yeah, something like that.
That's fair. That's
Until
fair.
they
We're
can
getting
be
rid of
dealt
people in
with.
other languages. There are multiple language speakers in this conference right now. I'm just saying, like, for the sake of like, hey, I want to have an emotional connection between my character and this character, but they don't know each other they in any way, because they can't really communicate unless we go through these weird steps. There's it makes it more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible or wrong that they went in that direction. I'm not a part of it. I'm just saying, like, with the idea of having character driven narrative first, it definitely is a hindrance.
For sure. And I'm kind of listening to the feedback of the group. Okay. So
Fine.
It was an immediately
you guys
different.
can talk to each other.
It was a totally different experience the moment Bob could connect the whole party.
The mind lobby.
Mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was immediately different experience where you could just talk freely.
Yeah.
It did. I will say it did feel like we had sub parties for a while there.
Yeah, that's
It's
interesting
like-
because it does kind of split
yeah.
the group up too.
Because you had
Just like in real
Mountain
life.
Satyrs.
You shut up.
Telling you, this is my life. This is what I live with. I go to work parties all the time, and then it's the one who speaks that language. They group up, and then
Yeah.
There's just Nigel left on the
There's
side
just
with his
Nigel.
beard.
No, I have some Trinidadians here, so I have some
Nice.
people who speak
Nice.
English.
Your people. Okay. All right. So
As Nigel whines about living in like a paradise,
yeah,
You remember?
the cons.
Yeah.
Max, whose wedding? It was Ryan's wedding, and we were talking.
Yeah,
it was like the dinner
what
portion.
was the worst thing about living in Aruba? Oh, it takes like 4 weeks to get Amazon delivered.
That's my number one complaint.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, those Amazon packages take long, bro.
Not next day, baby.
No next day.
Dude, I don't know how you've been able to like just live with that heat. I couldn't do it.
Luckily it's really cheap to run AC all day. Like it doesn't make like it's. I mean, we're coming from St. Martin where you could not do that unless you are really loaded. I can run AC 24 hours and my electricity bill is less than $100.
Really?
That's nice. It's nice to live in a world that has lots of, conveniences and
I can't even do
resources. And so
I run my AC 5 days a freaking month and I go up to.
Hang on. I'm segueing as we are going to talk back.
He feels a point coming along. He wants to share it because it's at me. Go ahead. Say what you got to say.
Well, we're recording.
Yeah.
And okay. So let's talk about the new campaign. I think that's what we're actually here to talk about. Okay, we're not just here saying, "Oh, by the way, guys, we're not playing this campaign anymore." So screw you. No, we do have something else in the works. We are coming up with a new campaign, still set in Hysteria, but with some twists. It will feature the three gentlemen you see here, as well as Button, JJ, and Hannah, who you've seen also on the channel. They've been in Heroes of Hysteria. They're in that first episode. You might see them in some other stuff. But our new campaign is going to be sometime after our current one. So here's the idea. Here's the general premise. So you guys can go ahead and kind of go ahead. I haven't told you guys the premise. So, well, you know most of the premise. But the formal premise is that there's this alien overlord type known only as the Monarch that has arrived to the planet upon this kind of like moon-sized vessel. So this second moon suddenly appears in the sky on the New Millennium Eve, right? This is our arrival event. And then some time passes and the alien is sent in, these invasive forces. They began a war on the planet. They've unleashed this evil plan to siphon all of the liquid water on the planet onto the surface of this second moon. And this cataclysmic event results in just a significant portion of the planet dead, displaced, ruined. Humanity is left to now survive in this barren, dry world. The planet's rotation is all kind of screwed up. And magic, the weave itself, the source of magic, was broken in the process of trying to fight back against the Monarch. The gods are nowhere to be found. This world is hostile, barren, broken, and hope is in short supply. It is exactly the kind of world that needs heroes. So, that's what we're going to do. Our goal here is I want to tell some really kind of interesting dystopian dark stories because that's what I know, that's what I love. And I want to kind of, tell these stories, but also kind of put it in the framework of having a bunch of really great characters who are going to try to save the world or, control it, whatever you want to do. Ultimately, it's up to you guys. But the world is in this is the state you guys are going to be in. And you guys can choose whether you are going to save the day, whether you're going to, fight back and repel the Monarch, whether you are going to try to make do with what you guys have left, whether, whatever you guys want to do. This is a great way, I think, to now just kind of wipe the world clean, right? And post-apocalyptic sets us up to have kind of like this soil that you guys, as characters, can actually really do a lot more cooperative storytelling. Because it's wide open. Take your pick, right? Button and I have already been talking about their species, the sea elf. How does the world look for sea elves? Did the world know? Not great.
I would argue they die because there's no sea and the sun kills them.
Imagine that mermaid is just like, shit.
Dude, there was a moment where JJ was talking about being a grung. And I was like, I mean, you can be a grung, but you need to wet yourself constantly. So we actually were talking about we were talking about like a Nezuko in a backpack kind of gag, so there'd be a character carrying that around, JJ would just hop right in and then hop right out for combat kind of stuff. But I mean, this is what we're looking at. It's a destroyed, barren wasteland of a world, and I think like I said, this is in almost literal narrative sense, a blank slate for us to just doodle and draw all over. We can make whatever we want here, right? Post-apocalyptic sets us up to just kind of have this whole thing. Just kind of the discussion that I've had with you guys as a group. We've talked about kind of like an almost Robin Hood-esque kind of thing, right? Because there's going to be some massive distribution issues.
I am so excited. The moment you started talking about just sort of the general tone and feel, I was like, all right, everything is going to be kind of gloom and doom because the world just fucking ended a week ago, and then come in our fuckos, and we're just like, we are the merry men, guys. We're here to party. And it was like, what the hell is this?
What is happening? Yeah, they're like, how are you guys so happy? We're dry. But yeah, no, you guys are going to run into some interesting stuff. I
have a question for you then.
Yeah, what's up?
Are you maintaining the same map? Or are you gonna?
Yes and no. So that's why it's good. We've got the map pulled up here. The world is going to change pretty drastically. Let me see.
Because I'm picturing this without water. So the huge lake there, for example, is
this
just
guy,
I don't know.
These guys, all of this. So here's the thing. How do we destroy the world? What does it look like without liquid water? What happens to the world? So we were talking about this earlier. I really love the idea of geosynchronous orbits. I think it'd be really interesting. I think it's a perfect opportunity, one, where if all the water gets siphoned up, that sudden shift in mass, right, kind of causes it to have this wobble and whoop, now we're stuck. So that creates a scenario where half the world is in just brutal desert sunshine and half the world is in just cold nighttime. So, and then that means the gap in the middle is what I was going to call the Twilight Belt. And that's where most of civilization is kind of, living and flocking to right now.
Like the equator?
Kind of. So what I was thinking of for a split, my original split.
The opposite, right? Wouldn't it be vertical if it's just facing?
Well, it depends, right? Depends on the axis of the world in the first place.
The axis of the world, yeah.
So we can put it wherever the hell we want, right? So this is actually a pretty big decision. I was thinking of doing this diagonal.
You mentioned it.
I was thinking this diagonal, or I was thinking this kind of weird lateral, because then we could hit Red Hessel and Azafast for the Twilight Zone in the Twilight Belt, so we can still keep our two big cities.
Yeah.
Well, then you also hit Berngarter, right? Because Berngarter is...
Yeah, you would also hit Stagkeep and Berngarter. You'd hit quite a few things. Muldan or Don is also pretty safe now.
I think that would be kind of cool because I want to eventually visit Berngarter.
Mm-hmm.
Just for fun,
Yeah. So, the other thing would be...
No reason, right?
I mean, you did them dirty, man. But...
I just want to see what's left.
So here's the thing, right? So... when the water is sucked up, right? I was thinking that this is where it all was gathered. So for our apocalypse, and when I make the map, something I'm considering is that all of this water on the surrounding area is drawn to this point, right? So floods happen inwards across the world to the Sea of Serenay. And then this is where the maelstrom happens. And then it creates this stupid large water spout that kind of lifts the water now out of the screen. That means that's how Bellins, the city with the magical university, Increst University, that's how that gets destroyed, and the Orve. So, there's a lot of land mass around here. These islands, all this shit is just ripped up. That includes Stagkeep and Berngarter.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that would include everything because at that point, this is tsunami across
Yeah.
the entire planet.
Yeah, this is like just water just rushing across the entire planet. So that's why
water is still going to find like the path of least resistance. So I'd imagine like if you're looking at the north bit where you almost have that borderline, like that would be, you'd see that borderline's actually now a big valley because water went gushing through it.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So because it's going to go breach.
So for the other thing too, right? As far as the things that are on the like dark side of the world, liquid water is what's gone, right? So like all of the liquid water's gone, clouds are gone, you know, the water cycle's broken. I thought that was an ostrich neck in your screen, Ollie. It's like
That's just my cat.
but you know, solid water, ice, that's still present on the planet, right? So I was thinking that what would have happened is when all the water is being like drawn through, it displaces a lot of the ice and kind of drags it into these sections. So it could mean that, you know, that valley is just full of like ice, just giant chunks, right? And then there's glacier fields.
I also like the idea of how that would affect the culture in these areas. Because at that point, ice mining would be probably a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like just any form of water collection would be massive.
So this brings me to
about the ice mining. Yeah.
This brings me to the idea for the zero session, or at least what I was thinking for the Sherwoods. Like first thing is that you guys are actually escorts of an ice harvester, right? Okay. These massive, giant fucking ships with these giant cranes and mining tools that make these expeditions into the dark side of the world to gather up ice and bring it back. And they need escorts. So that was kind of my idea for your guys' first mission. The company that you work for basically, you know, runs the ice harvester and hires, you know, crews and stuff like that. For our first zero session, I'm thinking of doing, you know, how you guys, you know, obviously end up at the company assigned to working together, and then, you know, how you get the boat. But we'll get to that. We have a while until that starts to happen. But this is my original crack at that, you know, idea, is escorts of a giant ice harvester.
So can I ask you a question then?
Please.
Knowing that there is this ice harvesting, which is a pretty common thing at this point, and that this section of the world is kind of frozen over in various ways. What does the water cycle look like now? Because we are transferring all of this water from one location to another. It's used, it's consumed, it's transferred back in some way, shape, or form. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Like, where does it rain? Where
does it go? So there is no more real like legit rain. You know, the water cycle is for the most parts done, right? The solid water that exists, you know, you'd have to bring all of that ice down to even, you know, have it have like a mass melt and then result in creating of an atmosphere. But the atmosphere like ceiling is significantly lowered with all the water gone. So this does kind of feed into why they're sending people out, is that because there's no liquid water, societies are trying to live in that kind of Twilight Belt, and they, you know, ice harvesters are kind of how they're able to sustain that. But everybody knows it's basically a war of attrition right now. The scum, who is, you know, the alien forces of the monarch, they're still around, right? And they're not making life any easier, right? We'll talk about what they're doing, but it's a war of attrition. So that's part of the idea here, is like, how do we save the day? Because the water cycle is broken, and we do have a limited supply of frozen water that we can kind of repurpose into stuff. But then at the same time, magic exists. So druids are very valuable. Druids are like incredibly powerful in terms of social status kind of deal, because of their ability to kind of create water, versus arcane magic. We'll talk about arcane magic as well. But in terms of water management, druids are important. So in the city of Azafast, for example, one of the big features of Azafast already was that Azafast was on basically a closed system. They were already perfectly recycling everything, right? The Emerald Union managed all of that as it was already in original Hysteria. So even though they got kind of pummeled by the waves and everything, Azafas is also doing better than the rest of the world. They were able to kind of protect themselves. The magical, the issue with arcane magic is not as prevalent there because of the presence of the elder glass crystals. So Azafas has a lot of things going for it. It's kind of the powerhouse city. So there is still a fairly big, fairly okay city. But because of that, they also realize, that because they're so powerful, they can do things like manipulate the water economy and stuff like that. And they have access to more things than pretty much most other communities in the world. They are the superpower. And their city is called New Azafast. And it is ruled by the Azarian Order. So it's a very militaristic kind of place. There's a couple of you guys that, this is all public knowledge. This is all stuff that you guys are going to know. I don't want to get into too much of, New Azafast, but it's organized, it's powerful. It's a leader in trying to bring the world back.
All right.
Well, yeah. Is this something I probably have to check with you on any updates from what I previously understood, because my character is from there.
Your character is from there. So yeah, Azafas is doing really well. And your character's guild especially is doing quite well. So let's talk about magic. In this world, their magic comes, and this is pretty true for a lot of D&D worlds, and I think most fantasy worlds, is that there's this mystical fabric of reality called the Weave, right? And that is kind of like the source of arcane magic, right? An arcane caster learns how to, connect to the Weave, draw magic out, and manipulate that force, okay? In this world, against the monarch and against the scum, in the process of trying to save the world, the powerful spellcasters and heroes tore the Weave. They drew too much power, or maybe something else happened. Whatever the case is, magic is broken, right? So it's very common for wild magic surges to happen, right? As arcane casters draw upon the energy of the Weave, of the tattered Weave, they risk, if they draw too much power, if too much power is collected, right? The fabric of the Weave is, being brought closer and closer to one area of the plane. The potential for catastrophe or just whatever is really high. So as a result, arcane spellcasters are very closely monitored, shunned. Arcane spellcasting is pretty much illegal in most places. Azafast is one exception to this rule because the Elder Glass crystals that they have already seem to be able to stabilize the Weave. So they can actually cast their arcane magic with several adaptations and new technologies incorporating the Elder Glass crystal. And that has kind of helped put the, groups like the Azarian Order and the League of Mages in charge, right? So even though the Emerald Union manages this perfect cyclic cycle, they still don't possess, quite the amount of clout. It's an interesting dynamic between those three groups for how Azafas is kind of held together. But yeah, so anything else about kind of the destruction of the world?
So just so I'm clear, that means that all spellcasters that use like arcane magic, wizards and whatnot,
wizards, eldritch knights, bards,
whenever they cast, they're basically rolling on the whatever it's called, chaos bullshit.
The wild magic surge table. So
it's when you breach it.
Yeah. So there's going to be a wild magic surge threshold, right? That if they exceed it, or if they match or exceed it, then the surge occurs. Well, then we roll to see if a surge occurs, because there's still some element of surprise there.
Gotcha.
I think that the interesting dynamic part of it was it's if you're still going with this, is that it's not just because I'm going to be a wizard, so it's not just me casting spells. It's like a certain area that different people can be casting spells, and if it adds up to over this threshold, then the person who casted that spell that put it over is the one rolling to see if they're going to have a surge.
Yes.
And it just keeps, I think once it passes the threshold, I'm assuming it resets and it just keeps going onwards that, right?
Yeah, round to round it'll reset. So mechanically, there's the potential for there to be some pretty big swings, like, because it's the Wild Magic search table. So maybe, you guys try to make it so that the bad guy is the one who breaks the table and they get the Wild Magic Surge, and maybe they cast Fireball on themselves, or maybe they cast Mirror Image on themselves. It could be a buff, it could be a debuff, right? How it happens is it's going to be up to the dice. So it's going to add a little element of some random stuff to our stuff. But in terms of a narrative sense, that's how it works mechanically at combat. In a narrative sense, you have to be mindful of how many people are casting arcane spells in any given space, right? So it has limited arcane casters to a great degree, except in Azafast. In New Azafast.
I figure the further away from Azafast you go, the society-wise, arcane casters are frowned upon, up to the point where some will just make it illegal and...
Yes, absolutely.
Pretty much come after you.
And in Azafast, yeah.
It sounds like the weave that you're talking about, the energy that arcane casters use, it sounds like beforehand, it was, like the name implies, it was weaved into a particular like matrix of energy. And now it's unraveled. So it's all still there. It's just when you grab a piece of it, it might be way more than you expected.
Yes. Yep. And the more you grab of it, and the more you grab of it, like the higher the likelihood of there being those unintended effects.
Yeah, it's like unraveling a piece of yarn like on your shirt.
Exactly.
You keep pulling and pulling until eventually your nipple's showing. It's like, oh, fuck.
Yep. Exactly. Sometimes it shows your nipples. Sometimes it shows your six pack, right?
Yeah.
You never know. It could be good. It could be bad. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I think it's going to add some interesting stuff to the setting.
So here's something I just thought of randomly. What if you're already a wild magic?
So that class just doesn't exist. I was thinking of just taking that class out.
I thought you were just going to enhance it.
No.
So we could enhance it, but so that depends. If someone really wants to play it, we can do it.
Yeah.
Right. We'll talk about enhancing it. But if you don't want to play it, we'll call it. Like I was going to say, if no one's playing it, then that subclass just doesn't exist in this game.
All right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it's pretty much just unless someone multi-classes or you as a DM brings it in.
Yeah.
It's never going to come up anyways.
Yeah.
So where does divine magics stand on this?
So divine magic has another interesting thing. Divine magic. So when the monarch struck, the gods were nowhere to be found. Everybody thought, like this is a very religious world, right? Everybody expected that the gods would save them, that they would protect them, right? But despite all the thousands and millions of prayers, offerings, tributes, sacrifices, trials, all of that, divine magic, the gods were nowhere to be found that day. They didn't save the world. The magic works, but the interesting thing about divine magic is that it seems to aggravate and attract the scum more so than arcane magic, or almost especially. So when divine magic is cast in this world, there is a potential that the scum, which is the invasive alien force, it's the collective name that the monarch's minions are called. There's a chance that the scum become aware and will track down wherever that magic is, and they will hunt those kind of casters. So now let's talk about the rain, because you asked what happened to the rain. Right. So the scum are, for the most part, some of them are, pretty robust, pretty strong, pretty mechanical. We'll have to talk about the Warforged as well. But the scum need water to survive, right? That's one of the things that you guys have learned, that people have seen. They dry out very quickly. And to make the passage of its minions that much easier to kind of, help them with the invasion, the monarch will send rain clouds ahead of the horde of scum. So, for example, one of the things that you would hate to see is rain clouds on the horizon, because that is bad news. That's not just rain. There is a horde of scum approaching. So I think that's going to be really cool.
This sounds really dope, because I also like the idea of, it's a risk reward sort of, because the idea is we are, like you said, Robin Hood-esque pirate people doing our shiz, helping the lesser. A lot of times the lesser is ourselves, of course, but whatever. And the idea of, like, all right, one of the most valuable resources being water. When a storm comes in, we know that's a dangerous thing, but that's also a lot of water.
That is a lot of water. Like
it's normal water, right?
Yeah, it's normal water.
Okay, let's check it.
Yeah.
So like I can see some options for just the riskiest. Like, all right, let's go steal these water.
And you guys, and so it's set up so that if you guys wanted to do that, you just have to pop off a bunch of divine casting spells. You just start sitting there in a circle and just keep casting guidance on each other or something. And sure enough, the scum will come. The scum will come. They will find you.
For something like a super crappy universal.
No, I spelt it with the K, and I just called it. Honestly, it wasn't meant to be anything. I was just kind of. It started off as just kind of like a normal thing, and then it kind of just continued to ride.
Yeah, I imagine, like the everyday people are gonna call it something. So.
Yeah, exactly. And the scum kind of that's exactly what I was kind of thinking. And the scum just kind of fit. The other thing too is the monarch. I actually, in my notes, I've started spelling it with a ARK instead of ARCH.
So you're just going full Mortal Kombat, just like
everything is now a K. Yep. I don't use the letter C anymore.
Orcs from
orcs is with a K.
Orcs.
So divine magic summons the scum. Nigel thought of an interesting, learned and then kind of helped me revise an interesting mechanic for how that works. I'm not quite sure what triggers it just yet. Whether it's going to be just every divine cast causes something, or maybe we divine cast, roll on a table, see if it hits, kind of deal. And if it does, then okay, here's what happens. Basically, the DM or the DM and the caster, we make some opposing rolls using, like, we were thinking a D8, but I think it'll vary depending on the spell and location and that kind of stuff. So you'd roll 2 opposing dice. The difference of the dice, if in favor of the DM, is the number of scum that show up. The difference of the dice, if in favor of the player, is the number of scum that is immediately destroyed. Divine energy destroys the scum in the area if the player wins the contested roll. If the player loses the contested roll, though, the scum show up. So if the dice are not with you and you're just popping off divine spells, this can go really bad really fast.
Is it the same for like warlock magic? Is that considered divine?
No, so those are patrons. Those are unique. Warlocks are actually one of the only casters that don't actually have anything weird or special in this world, because you guys have patrons. And and if anyone is a warlock, I will work out what their patron wants, because their patron wants some shit in this new destroyed world. I've
been a warlock too many times, not this time.
Not this time, but man,
so
we'd have a hell of a time, Ollie. And then druids have a thing too. So druids, they take their magic from the world, right? They call their magic up from nature around them, the life force and the life stream around them, not from the weave. Not from any sort of deity, but from the world itself. They are, an interface almost. Druids' magic works, but druids can now, and this comes from the Dark Setting campaign rules, they can now defile their magic. So if a druid chooses to, they can defile their spells and add a quality to it, one of the meta magics from the sorcerer's thing. So they can twin spell, they can subtle spell. They can, heighten spell, make their spell stronger, right? They have a lot of really cool options, but when they do this, or they can even recover spell slots doing this, where they just draw magic from the world. When a druid does this, though, they gain Defiler points. Defiler points, while they are active, have various, penalties and stuff like that. So there's a trade-off there. And then you can either choose to purge your defilement, right? And if you do so, that requires quite a process. Or you can choose to, and I think we're going to rework the phrasing here, assume the taint. And
Sun that taint.
Yep.
when you assume the taint,
What do we do with a taint?
Now, son,
So-
as you get older, eventually you'll have to assume the taint.
Yeah.
exactly. So assuming the taint it only has role-playing consequences. Basically, other druids and other like wisdom-based kind of creatures and stuff, things that are sensitive to this kind of stuff, will know that you are a defiler. You cannot rid yourself of that corruption. So you can do that quickly. So to rid yourself of like all the negative bonuses of defiling takes, like I said, a long rest and a whole bunch of other process stuff. Or you can, if you want to get rid of those penalties from having the defiler points, or while you're going along, you can just say at any point, like, I'm going to take a short rest and I'm going to assume the taint. Get rid of your penalties, but now everybody knows you are a defiler. So there's some narrative consequences there.
Is it only for a temporary period of time, though?
No, you are permanently. If you assume the taint, you are permanently tainted.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. No one assumes the taint lightly, my friend.
Uh-huh. You ever go one-on-one versus taint without thinking of consequences?
One does not stare into the eyes of the taint and simply come back unchanged.
Because the taint stares back into you.
It starts talking to you. There's problems.
So spellcasters have some interesting mechanics that they're going to need to work out, as you guys can see. I think it's going to add a lot to the game. I think it's not, oh, you guys can't speak the same language, but more like, okay, cast all the spells you want, but I get to blow you up if you do.
Maybe I should be a fighter.
I was just gonna say, let's cover the martial classes.
So
David?
for martial classes, what's happening with martial classes? I really do like the idea of there needing to be some more resource requirement involved. It needs to be a little bit more, like your equipment. It's hard to just get equipment, right? You need to take care of your equipment in an apocalypse. Equipment management in an apocalyptic setting is like mandatory. You have to have good stuff. So I was thinking it could be destroyed. I was thinking of putting in a wear and tear mechanic, right? Again, from the Dark Settings Guide, Dark Sun Settings Guide. I'm not totally sure about these rules. I'm still reviewing some other ones. There's a lot of good rules for equipment management stuff. But martial classes, this is one of those things they're going to need to pay attention to. If you are crit, right, your equipment becomes worse, right? You can, it'll take some lasting damage. Your plate armor might drop in terms of AC, right?
If you get crit, though.
If you get crit. If you crit, you can damage someone else's armor and then subsequently lower their AC. So like on a crit, as a martial character, if you hit someone's like shield and break it, that should affect their AC going for the rest of the fight, right? If you hit someone's plate mail and you rend it, you cause a giant gash to appear, that shit needs to carry on. So you can also, if that happens.
The same with like a spell, though.
You
put on a spell.
Maybe. I'm not sure yet. It should be, I think.
The balancing idea in David's mind is the crazy stuff you can do with magic balances out with the critting on a 20 to lower AC.
Or rolling a 1.
Right.
Like if you roll a 1 on your attack roll, you open yourself up to an attack of opportunity, but your weapon can take damage too, right? So like if you're using like, a sword, right? A long sword, you have a D8, right? You roll a 1, your sword drops in quality. It goes to a D6 now. Right? If you keep doing it until your sword hits a minimum of 1, right? After a D4, it goes down to a minimum of 1. Okay, so you can still use it, you still have it, you can still repair it. If it's at 1 damage minimum and you get another natural 1, your sword shatters or it breaks, right? The other thing you can do though with a 1-point sword is you can choose to shatter it on purpose, in which case I'd give you back your full D8, but you lose your weapon. So you can make like some pretty baller plays, right? Oh, my sword's I can only do 1 damage, but I just got a 20. Do I take the 1 damage, or do I take my D8 plus the D8 that I roll by shattering my blade on my enemy? So
can you explain that? It's either 1, or if you want to do the D8, that's going to cause a shattering effect.
Yes, because so once your sword is like gone through so many natural ones that it's only at that 1 minimum damage point, right? So take the longsword, right? You'd get down to like 1 minimum damage point, but you roll a 20, right? You can take your crit, which is going to be just 1 plus 1 plus, whatever other things, your sneak attack, all that shit. Or you can shatter your blade, in which case you take 8 plus your roll D8, your sword's original thing. Or if you're two-handing it, it would be a D10. So you can boost your damage by just snapping your blade.
Is this the same with magical items?
I don't know. I have to work on some of that stuff still. I was thinking too, though, with magic items, some of the common, like dumb magic items become super important. The alchemical jug. That thing is like
I want
gold. That's worth a ship. Like, I'll take 2 jugs and we'll trade you the Sherwood.
So in this next, when we do our first session, we're stealing not just our ship, we're stealing a couple of ships. We're gonna get some jugs.
We gotta afford
I gotta get a jug. Yes, I'll sell you half my fleet.
One of the end games is we all just have our own ship.
But
it's like
maybe, right?
No, end game is everybody has their own jug.
Yeah,
everybody has their own jug.
Now you can. All right, now go and start your own kingdom if you want.
I remember when I pitched I remember when I pitched this to Max at one point, and I was like, dude, so you guys should be able to choose, if you want to like how you want to approach stuff. If you want to, if you want to fix the magical weave, right? That's a plot point that the players can do, right? And change the world. And Max goes, oh, what if I changed it so I can be the one who decides who gets magic? So I can become the ruler of the world and I become a god. It's like, yeah, you could, right?
Yeah.
The more I think about it,
is that not what you would expect me not to say? Come on. You gave me the option.
That's true. The options.
Yeah, but you're more of the player that would fall into it. Like, that wouldn't have been your intent. It would just happen.
It's just, the opportunity arose, and
and it's just like
no. I mean, like, hey, I'm gonna take on this massive responsibility. I definitely don't want it, but I'm gonna do it for the world. Now pray to me and give me like treats, and maybe you'll get magic.
You want to cast Eldritch Blast? You say? That'll be 4 cookies.
Honestly, a god who's just like, hey, pay me this much and you can do whatever. I'm in. That sounds so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, I make it simple.
Welcome to Catholicism, man.
Yep. Hey God, here's 20 Give me that promotion. Come on.
Yeah.
You want to be the Popa? It's gonna cost a lot of jugs.
This is not the character that I'm running with in this campaign, but I now just in my mind clicked with the idea of like a traveling salesperson with just like a bag of holding, and inside is just a giant chunk of ice, like a glacier. They just here's some ice for you. Keep on
man, I'm imagining the dude from God, what is that Broadway show? Where they're in New York and they're singing. What?
Cats.
No.
Jersey Boys.
No.
Lion King.
They recently redid it on HBO.
The Hamilton?
No, not Hamilton. But the dude's in it. Lin-Manuel Miranda's in it. In the Heights. That's the one. In the Heights. In the Heights. Lin-Manuel's character actually is, the frozen shaved ice guy. That's exactly who you're talking about. That's that character.
Love it.
Well, imagine if you're like a snake oil salesman, though. Like you're selling these things that are kind of like fake.
Ooh, fake ice.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like it stays in the ice form. for a little bit, and it like initially feels like ice. It's all like ice, but it's after you interact with it, or after like an hour, it just dissipates.
Yep.
It's like
we went from lawful good to like neutral.
Who did I never
Good
said
slash
I was
evil.
lawful good.
Yeah.
No,
Max
what
never-
with Ali saying
no.
with the ice, and then we went to we'll scam them. That's what I mean.
That's why I'm very excited for Max and Ollie to actually continue to be players alongside each other, because they are very different people. Ollie's like, oh, I'll save the world. Max is like, I will own the world.
Profits.
But
Can I say one thing though? It does seem like this is coming off as what is that game time called? West March?
West March, yeah. So where you kind of like exploring and stuff. It's set up to
seeming
kind of
more
be,
and more like that.
It's set up to be, you know, in my head I'm calling it, if I have to call the genre, it's post-apocalyptic dark fantasy exploration is kind of the long genre title. There is obviously some pirate swashbuckly stuff in there, and even the type of apocalypse. You know, a post-apocalyptic is such a very like umbrella for genres. You know, you have your zombie apocalypses in our case, or you have like, you know, your alien apocalypses, which is kind of our case. You have your natural disaster apocalypses, which is also kind of our case. And then you have, you know, your, oh, the world is destroyed, but we're going to make it better kind of apocalypse, right? Which are hopeful apocalypse, which is also our case, right? We are telling all of the apocalypse stories at once.
Can you roll in AI in there somehow? Because that's the only one we're missing.
Oh,
AI.
What do you think? You know, how do you think
Warforged.
the aliens work, man?
I'm just gonna say.
They're psionic. They're psionic aliens. We've got I'm avoiding zombies, but I mean, even the giant, you know, maelstrom kind of fits like almost our nuclear apocalypse, except not kind of really, maybe not really. But you have, you know, a giant disaster event. But I definitely think of the Monarch as an interesting kind of villain that can, you know, in terms of like an apocalypse, can kind of represent a lot of different, you know, or themes, right? We can be flexible with this. And the other thing too is I think things are going to vary from arc to arc, you know, kind of depending on where you guys are at. You know, you kind of go to New Azafast. Yeah, exactly. You know, like when you go to like New Azafast, for example, you know, a lot of the things you're going to run into is, you know, the restriction of spellcasters, right? The militarized police force. It's very dystopian, right? But that's not necessarily the theme for the rest of the campaign, just that area. It's going to be interesting, I think. And the goal too is, depending on what you guys give me for backstories, those are also stories that we are going to explore as well. You know, if the character you give me is a very like hero's journey kind of character, let's do it, right? Hannah talked to me about doing a treasure hunter, right? This is a great world for a treasure hunter. You know, you're exploring the ruins of the old society kind of thing, right? So there's lots of treasure hunting to be done. That's the great thing about post-apocalypse, though. It really opens up. What do you want to do? Let's do it. You know.
This is exciting.
Have you guys played Red Dead Redemption 2 at any point?
I'm not.
Seen video, but no.
So it's kind of interesting because it takes place before the first game, and it's kind of neat because it's the gang. You have like a charismatic leader, and like they're robbers, they rob trains and stuff like that, but he always puts a spin on it that he's really just taking from the like people that have too much,
The 1%ers.
Yep, exactly. So kind of like that, it has that vibe to it, but and he's always being very generous in the beginning because they have resources, but then there's times where they don't have the resources, so it's like, all right, no, I'm going to keep the money, I'm not going to help these people, right?
Nice.
So
nice.
it's like are your morals there when you have the resources at the same time, or are they flexible when you don't have the resources?
Is compassion and empathy something I can afford right now?
Is it convenient or?
Yeah. So and that's exactly the kind of shit we're going to talk about. So as far as future episodes of this show goes, because I think we'll probably wrap up here soon.
Yeah.
As far as future episodes for this show goes, we are going to basically be talking about different topics as we build this campaign. Now we have an idea of what the setting's going to look like. We have an idea of kind of the stories, your characters are going to want to tell, some of the stories that you guys are going to get to experience in, the different locations. And then we're going to talk about each of the different facets of the world in different episodes. So next episode, we got to talk about some of the key features. This is a fantasy exploration, and it does have a very nautical overtone where you guys are a crew of an airship, right? This provides you in a desert world, in a wasteland world, this provides you the ability to kind of go wherever you want, right? Keep in mind though, because of the water being gone, the atmosphere ceiling is dropped. So your airship doesn't actually get that high, which makes it really cool. I think airships are interesting, but the issue with airships is always they've been able to hide up there for way too long. They're always safe. Now we have a world where that's not going to be super convenient for you. And two, we'll talk about, how common airships have become. How has this post-apocalyptic society decided, okay, airships are going to be the solution. How do we accommodate for this? In Azafast, for example, there's a sky dock, right? In other territories, maybe they just have like landing platforms, right? How do the mechanics work from ship to ship? Does your ship need railings to land or landing gear? Does your ship, if it's a balloon ship, can you just, keep the engine going and floating? As far as engines and stuff, the water being siphoned off the world has led to things like crude oil and, stuff being discovered. So we can get some more mechanical engines too. Oil, gasoline, all that stuff is now available to us. Guns, cannons, that's continuing to become more prevalent in the world as well. As, we found, okay, sure, we lost all the water, but some other resources have opened up. What do we do with the black water that we found underneath in the deep sea trenches?
Drink it.
Yeah, there was definitely a group that certainly did that first. Oh man, I just had an idea for some orcs.
Oh,
fire-breathing orcs.
Oh god. Maybe they mutate. Look what
I'm
you've
also
done,
excited.
Molly.
I'm excited to see how cultures develop like new sports and new like lifestyles in general. Just like, is there a new sport where just like instead of wind sailing, there's just
airship racing or something?
Yeah, like dune racing. Maybe someone getting dragged on a snowboard, but through these massive dunes.
Dude, that'd be fucking awesome.
Because if that's the case, I'm getting a real long rope and I'm jumping down from the from the boat.
It's like
surfing.
In Breath of the Wild, you can ride on your shield, and I think you can lasso some creatures and then like ride on your shield on sand dunes as well.
So
hell yeah.
So certain like races and cultures and stuff, like as far as airships and stuff go, I have such a list of types of airships and ideas. I mean, and then we got to talk about the mechanics of them, but just to give you an idea, elder glass crystals, bound elementals, balloons, propellers, sun sails, mechanical walkers, electromagnetic ships, a mutant rock, that kind of carries a ship around, large kites. I don't want to go into
like a large
ghost
tortoise?
ships. I have one idea for some Goliaths with this like horn of everlasting wind, right? And they can kind of keep it going, and then they've got these paddles that they kind of move through. So you have like some still Viking like magic ships.
That's awesome.
We're gonna go crazy, man. Like it's gonna be nuts. You guys are gonna run into some really cool stuff. So airships are a thing. That's one of the topics. I mean, that's going to be an episode onto itself, just the mechanics and how airships work, and in terms of combat. Because now combat happens on a very, 3-dimensional scale, which is going to be super interesting. What We'll talk about the environment. That's one I was debating maybe having that as being one of the next first episodes we talk about. How does survival work here? Because for, in terms of like the world being split, I was thinking the bottom side is going to be, ranging between, 100 to like 170 degrees. And then on the opposite side, it's going to go from like 0 to -70, so we kind of have like flip-flops on either side, other extremes. And that's why that Twilight Belt is so important to humanity. And then we'll talk about some rules where survival is concerned, because I definitely am going to make sure that, we're keeping track of, our food and stuff like that. And that's only if as long as it's not bogging the game down too much, right? But I'm reviewing lots of different survival rules. Broken magic, I think we'll talk about broken magic some more as we kind of like zero in. I think we've got some good ideas for how we want to start off. I think these are good starting points, but there's other things we should consider, like the wild magic surge threshold. Is that fixed, or does that vary place to place? What actually triggers the scum and divine magic thing? Some other stuff. We just have some other stuff to work out. But basically the goal is to make, consequential magic. I want there to be some feeling to using magic. Items, we're going to have an episode talking about salvage culture, harvesting culture, treasure hunt culture, apocalyptic economies. Do we even use money? Crude oil, gunpowder, all that stuff, how that has changed the world. Cultures and societies, of course, I think was going to be the episode after that, where we have an idea of like, okay, what do people value? Water is the number one thing, right? Beyond that, now how does that affect culture and society? And then we would have our backstory episodes, our character backstory episodes. So we're probably going to have 3 of those. Do you guys in pairs? Unless we do end up with a triplet backstory group, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if that's likely, but we'll at least do pairs. And then we'll do our first zero session. That'll be kind of the last episode of this show, of the Campaign Creation Diaries, is that zero session episode.
Fun.
And then after that, I would say smooth sailing, but we'll see what kind of sailing happens.
All right, so it sounds like that's a wrap on our first campaign diary then.
Pretty much, yeah. Unless I don't know. We'll have like a rotating panel for these guys. I think we'll see. You'll probably see these guys. Obviously, JJ, Button, Hannah, they'll be on here as well. Don't be surprised if you see guys like friends of the show, like Austin, who has made a brief feature in one of the current Heroes of Hysteria episodes. But we'll see how things go.
Hell yeah. All right, in that case, thank you for watching, everybody. Please enjoy some of our other programming on the Delta Cryptid Productions channel. It's all very good. And stick tuned to see us develop a whole fucking world for you guys. Do you guys have anything you'd like to plug before you go? All I've got is my Twitter @CryptidDelta. You can follow me there, and I'll update that Twitter with everything that we're doing whenever we're doing it. But yeah, anything for you guys?
I'm an internet ghost, so
yeah, same. I don't believe in the internet.
You need some presence. You need to get online.
I don't have a Twitter.
Are we content creators? Do we have to do this now?
You people are 80 years old.
You can follow me on Instagram. Oh, I'm sorry, Insta. At YoSoyNigel with an underscore between each word.
Okay.
I only have
description below, so.
Right, it's easy to find. Some people are ghosts. Some people are whatever the opposite of a ghost is.
a living person.
I stay hidden from the internet.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. Sorry that so many of us don't exist online. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.
Ciao.
Hey.